When most people hear the words emotional eating, they picture something very specific. A woman alone, upset, maybe eating ice cream or chocolate. And that image is so dominant that for most men, they never really connect those words to what is happening for them. Because for most men, emotional eating looks completely different. It might be standing in the kitchen, not feeling hungry, but eating anyway, or stopping at the drive-through on the way home from work, or being good all day and then just losing control with everything when you get home from work at night. But it also might be completely different to those as well. The specifics vary, but the pattern underneath them doesn't. I think for most men, it often doesn't look like distress or overwhelm. It looks like habit. And that's one of the reasons this often goes unrecognized for so long. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're gonna hopefully recognize something in yourself that you probably never really had the right language for. And that recognition alone changes things. And by the way, I'm Harry, and I've spent years studying this pattern and helping men who are stuck inside it. So men that have often never had a name for it, a reason for it, or even a sense that it can change. And I've also noticed that hardly anyone is making content for this about men. So every book, every program, every resource is aimed at emotional eating for women. I think that most men that look for help around this find nothing that sounds like them and then just quietly give up trying. And so this video is for you, those men, and also me who used to emotionally eat as well. And so now 3 things I'd like you to understand by the end of this video. Number 1, what emotional eating actually looks like in men and why it looks nothing like the stereotype. Number 2, why men often don't recognize it in themselves and why it's not your fault. And number 3, what's actually driving it and why the standard solutions never actually worked. After this video, you'll start to recognize something in yourself that's probably been there for years, because emotional eating in men doesn't really announce itself. It doesn't really feel emotional. It feels a bit like a habit, a craving, a bad day, a reward, or just like a moment of letting go. It basically feels like a lot of things before it really feels like what it actually is. It could be the man that does everything right and then finds himself in the kitchen eating things after dinner that he can't really explain. Or it could be the man that eats differently when he's alone to when other people are around. That secret eating that bears no resemblance to the control he has in public. Or maybe the man that stops at McDonald's on the way home from work, not really because he's hungry, because he needs something to liven up his day, or a reward, or some kind of joy, that missing feeling. Or it could be the man that's controlled all week and then just completely loses it on the weekend with drinks and food, and that's his cheat day, and he labels it as that to kind of avoid the guilt. And the word cheat meal, cheat foods, they fit into this fitness culture. Or it could be something like me, the guy that eats 4 slices of cake at a birthday party when everyone else has 1. And everyone laughs and thinks it's funny. And I laughed too, but deep down, I didn't really enjoy those pieces of cake. It was something about the loss of control, because it was a moment of permission, because it was a party. And just thinking about it, could also be like the man who keeps foods out of the house, certain foods, not because he doesn't like them, but because he feels he has no control around them. So it's a way of controlling those foods. And the point is, none of those scenarios really look like that typical emotional eating thing you see, the woman on the sofa with the chocolate or the ice cream. It's completely different. But the point is that every single one of them is the same thing underneath. It's a pattern that your brain has learned to use food to control your feelings, to reduce some kind of discomfort. And it might not be obvious discomfort, it's just a way of managing your state. And just really want to point out as well, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or that you're weak. It's just that your brain has learned that this is a quick and easy way to change the way you feel. Again, to manage your state. And so that's what it looks like. But the next question that most men have is that if it's so common, why have I never recognized myself in this? So this leads us on to point number 2. So there are 3 reasons why men don't usually recognize themselves in these patterns, and none of them really have anything to do with how self-aware you are. It's more about the world you're living in. The first reason is, like I said earlier, the popular culture image of a woman on a sofa eating ice cream or chocolate at the end of the day. The word emotional is much more connected with women, and so when men think about this, they don't often link their behaviours to emotional eating. The second reason is the silence around it. So men or other men around them don't really talk about emotional eating or the guilt and shame around it. And it's that lack of male voice in the area that makes people less likely to name it. And the third reason is the fitness industry that in some ways has normalized disordered behaviors. So things like clean eating, things like cutting, cheat meals, and tracking to extreme levels. These give the behaviors a different name, a more acceptable name, a more like performance-based name that you can relate to and justify even. And so when you don't stick to your macros, for example, it's labeled as poor discipline rather than emotional eating. And so not recognize these patterns or these things in yourself is not failure, or for you anyway, it's almost like a failure of the fitness industry to you for naming them in different ways that make them hard to actually see, and then obviously because of that, hard to solve. So if any of this is starting to land for you and you want to understand your specific version of this pattern, I have a free assessment in the description below, 3 minutes, and it will help you understand your behaviors, any emotional eating you have, and clear first steps you need to take to actually solve it. So it's down there in the description below. So like I said, this pattern is real and it's more common in men than most people think. It's not talked about much and the language isn't really orientated towards the people like you that need to hear it. And the next thing to understand is what's actually driving this behavior. And that's what point 3 is all about. So the first thing to understand is that emotional eating is not a food problem. That's right, it's nothing to do with food. Sounds strange, but it's also not a character flaw or anything to do with discipline. What it actually is a nervous system problem, an unconscious brain problem, a learned pattern that's operating in the background. So at some point in your life, eating became a quick and reliable way to change the way you feel. Food is always available and doesn't involve anyone else, and it's a quick way to, like I said, make yourself feel better. Whether it's stress, boredom, just emptiness, or wanting to add joy into maybe a seemingly like bland day or too much work, something to switch your brain off. Food is quick, rapid, that's the same word, reliable. So put simply, discomfort arrives in whatever form. You get a craving, you eat, discomfort goes. So it's simple, it's not complicated, but it's very powerful. And this happens automatically. It's not a conscious decision. It's not happening with your thinking part of your brain. So to relate it to something you already know, think about when you touch something hot. You quickly pull your hand away. You don't think, oh, that pan is hot, I will move my hand. It happens automatically. And that's the same thing with emotional eating. You get this urge and it drives you to do something. You might be aware of what's happening, but that urge seems like it's taken over your body or your mind, and you can't really control yourself. You have that maybe nagging thing in your brain of I need to eat it now or this feeling won't go away. And that's why discipline doesn't work to fix this, because discipline works like willpower. It's a conscious choice. It uses the thinking part of your brain. What we're talking about operates below this level. Going back to the example of the hot pan, you can't really use willpower to override that jumping back, or you step out in front of a car, you don't use your willpower to stop moving out of the way of the car. It happens so quickly that it's there for safety, basically. So you are not consciously able to override that. Basically, put another way, you're trying to override a reflex decision, and reflexes happen much quicker than normal decisions. And so to really emphasize the point, this isn't a discipline problem, it's a problem up here, some learned pattern that isn't linked to your character. And importantly, knowing this isn't the same as fixing it, but knowing it is the first stage, because misdiagnosing a problem leads you to the wrong solution, right? And that's why so many people are focused on trying to use discipline to lose weight, lose fat, stop their emotional eating. And don't forget, the assessment I mentioned earlier is in the description below. If you want to recognize your own patterns, it's down there, only takes 3 minutes and will help you find the first steps to solving this. And so you don't have to call this emotional eating. You don't have to label it with anything. What's important is you may recognize some of this in yourself. And that is the first stage of moving forward. It's about the patterns up here. And when I recognized this in myself, it changed everything for me because it stopped me focusing so much on discipline, numbers, tracking, and this neurotic mindset around control. And that is what my channel is here to show you. So if you like this content so far, subscribe. And I feel that this video on screen is probably the next one you should be watching if you want to solve this for good.